First of all, congratulations on the film. It comes out this Friday. I'm going to assume that you both are ecstatic and looking forward to seeing how the film is received by audiences. I mean, I think that's one of the things about making movies. You don't really know what to expect, how audiences are going to react to it. I mean, are you anxious? Are you nervous? Are you excited? I mean, what's the temperature in the room right now? You can start with Ryan.
Excited for sure. Yeah, I would say a little nervous because I haven't been a part of a release that was happening during the pandemic, but so many of our colleagues have gone through this. So it feels like, it feels like a roller coaster that your friends have gone down, but you haven't, you haven't gone over yet, definitely got a little bit of anxiety around that. Just because I haven't been through it before. But aside from that, it's really excited for people to see the film. Excited to share it. Really excited for Shaka and for Charles and for Zenzi and Seb, my collaborators, and for the actors. We saw them do this work. What was it, Charles? Was it over a year ago?
Yeah.
We were there, on set watching them and Shaka make magic. So, it's been in our minds for a while. Just how good Lakeith is, just how good, Daniel is, Dominique, Jesse, Martin, and all the supporting cast. So I'm amped up for audiences to take a look.
Okay.
I mean, look, it's for us. I mean, there was just so much that we all put into it. So much heart and soul and the timeliness of it, the powerfulness of the message. People have been anticipating it, I think, ever since that amazing trailer dropped this summer. And like Ryan said, and particularly some of the artists that I think, people are already fans of, but now the world's going to see them even, take their craft to another level. And, and particularly the world discovering Shaka King's voice. And we're really, just see how brilliant he is. So, and I'm looking forward to also other members of the movement and Black Panther Party. I mean, there've been a few screenings, but I can't wait for those that were around during that time and doing so much of the work for our community. We're so excited for them to see the movie as well.
Yeah. So I assume the chairman has seen it. Fred Hampton Jr. has seen it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And he approves, I hope, of the finished product. Okay, I'll take that as a yes.
Okay. Chairman's seen it. Maybe more than anybody. That's not directly related to making the film. And Mama Akua, Chairman Fred Hampton Sr.'s widow, she's seen it. But they're excited as well.
I mean, over the 5 decades since he was murdered, Fred Hampton has become sort of like an almost folkloric figure, you could say, especially within the Black community. Even if awareness of his life story mostly begins, I think, for a lot of people, begins and ends with the particulars, with the specifics of his assassination. Would you say that, I think I watched a couple of interviews where, Charles, you said that you weren't as broadly familiar with Hampton's story. You knew about COINTELPRO, obviously you know about the assassination, but not much beyond that. So working on the film, I would assume has broadened your knowledge of the life that he lived.
Absolutely. I mean, definitely working on the movie, spending the time. We spent a good year, Shaka, Ryan, Zenzi, myself, and some of our colleagues at Macro, getting to know Chairman Fred and Mother Akua. We went back and forth to Chicago at least 3, if not 4 times over the course of a year. And then they also visited us a few times while we were in pre-production, even before we started shooting. And in every one of those meetings and conversations, there was another level of things that we learned that you could not read in a book, things that you would not see in a documentary, nuance and detail. So much of what, frankly, was on the record was skewed. and mischaracterized. And so we learned a lot from them also. And then every day on set for sure, because there were consultants on the movie with us. This was Chairman Fred and Mother Kua. And so, Chairman Fred spent a lot of time with us in Video Village for 41 days. And so we learned a lot through the making of this movie. And I think that have forever been changed for the better from it.
How about you, Ryan? I mean, how familiar, being from the Bay Area, I mean, how familiar were you with Hampton and sort of the wider Black Panther organization?
The Panther Party, I was very familiar with. Just coming from where I'm from, where my family is from. My family on my mom's side is from North Oakland, which is where, that was their base for a long time, North and West Oakland, specifically. And I, in the area of Oakland where my family's from, you couldn't have family members that weren't party members. That's how how ubiquitous the party was in that part of my hometown. So I was very familiar with stories about the Oakland Panthers, a little bit about Los Angeles, and I knew that the party was an international organization. But my familiarity with the Illinois chapter was not as strong as it probably should have been. I learned about Chairman when later in life. Like I can't remember not knowing who Minister Huey was, or Bobby Seale, Bobby Hutton, these names I knew from hearing my family talk about them. These are people that they knew. As far as the Illinois chapter, that was a world that I got exposed to, in adulthood, like being a filmmaker. I would hear people talk about Chairman, and it was, would do investigations in who he was and some of the stories around him. But making this film was really life-changing in terms of me understanding the party. I learned even more about, the California chapter, the Oakland Panthers, from doing this, and hearing about them in Illinois. And it gave me a greater respect for that generation before us, to be honest with you. It was definitely, you hear about filmmakers having life-changing experiences, but producing this was definitely one of those for me and my colleagues at Proximity.
Okay, understood. It's kind of an allegorical battle, you could say, between capitalism and socialism, which I don't think could be any more topical and timely.
Right.
Or the proletariat, as Hampton referred to himself as, and the
right.
people he fought for,
right.
versus the elites. So right now there's all this talk about capitalism as a socialism. This I think I did a search. I did a search on Google Trends, and it said that the word revolution in the United States, like it's not the most popular, but of all the countries in the world, the United States is where it's the most popular searched item for the last, I think, since 2004. It's been sort of gradually, yeah. So obviously people are interested and they're wondering maybe what that is or what it looks like, kind of a thing. Especially now, as you have, wages have been stagnant, I think, for decades, and you have Congress and the Senate fighting over $2,000 checks or $1,400 checks in the middle of a deadly pandemic. And so, I wonder it's hypothetical, we can't say because he's no longer with us, but I wonder what Fred Hampton would say about where we are today. Any guesses on that from either of you, or even commentary on anything that I just said? I mean, he was 21. Mark Clark was 22. Huey P. Newton was 24 when he founded the party. And I try to recall what I was doing at 21, and I can guarantee you I was not thinking about starting or joining a revolution of any sort. But go ahead. Either of you can take the floor.
I mean, I think that the interesting part about Chairman Fred Hampton Sr. is that, and I'm learning this as I get older, right? You get a different perspective on time. But truthfully, 50 years wasn't that long ago. His son, Chairman Fred Hampton Jr., who was born weeks after the assassination, is still around, alive and well. And like in terms of getting perspective on what Chairman Senior would say, Chairman Fred Hampton Jr., the Black Panther Party Cubs, which is a organization that he founded, they're kind of carrying on those same principles, and talking to him and them and Mama Akua and Jerry as well, who was, formerly known as Deborah Johnson. Talking to them, you get a pretty firm idea of how ahead of the curve and also timeless the struggle of the Panther Party was. It was a time where the Panther Party was a phenomenon that locked into revolutionary struggles that were happening globally in different places, whether it was the Ivory Coast or Mozambique or Central and South America. It was a global spirit that was abound that they tapped into. It wasn't unique just to them, but their applications, and the forces that were going up against, were so profound, that it became the stuff of legend. You know what I mean? But what really struck me getting to know his family and walking around the places where he was at was that he was a real guy. And sometimes humanity can be lost when people are kind of become legend. You know what I mean? But it's important to understand that he was a very unique person. You know what I mean? Like a supernaturally gifted person. But he was a person. And he was a guy who believed in the power of regular people. And fought for regular people, died for regular people. And that perspective, I think, is one I thought Shaka and his actors captured so well in the film as well. That this was a flesh and blood guy, who was assassinated, but who was galvanizing other flesh and blood people, and that's where the power was.
There's not much more I would add to that, except for if you think about much of what's happened in the movement today. I think that he was someone who was way ahead of his time. The maturity and the insightfulness he had. So I think a lot of the images that we've even seen, even like this past summer when we were impulsed on this film, of people from every background imaginable marching globally on behalf of kind of racial equity and kind of injustice that we've been seeing in our communities, and that this is a global thing. He had a global vision. And so it was just kind of forecast even today, different people fighting for that global vision, and frankly, really his efforts around the Rainbow Coalition, I think, and seeing that play out in many ways since then, I think really shows how much he was well ahead of his time.
When I spoke to Shaka, speaking of revolution, when I spoke to Shaka, he said that, I don't know if you guys were involved at this point, you meaning Ryan and Charles. He said the touchstone, his initial idea was to do something broader, like to really focus on the entire party. And the touchstone for him was Guillaume Pontecover's The Battle of Algiers, which I thought was quite ambitious, initially ambitious idea anyway, but I was very intrigued by that. And he talked about potentially like maybe there's a TV series or something like that. But then we talked about the financing of that series, and I joked and I said, well, maybe Charles can put the money up. But if there's anything you want to say about the initial conversations around what the script or what the film was going to be, from initial Battle of Algiers to what it eventually became, somewhat more narrowly focused.
Before I read a script from Shaka, it was a pitch, and the pitch that Zinzi and I heard from him in his parents' backyard was very, very specifically about the contrast between the characterization of Chairman Fred Hampton and Bill O'Neill, and how they both reacted to the forces that were in power in this country, you know, and how those forces affected them. One, you know, manipulated directly. The other one eventually would assassinate. You know, and that you know that was the pitch. This idea of you know looking at a genre thriller, almost like an undercover thriller. You know, like departed through the you know set in the world of the COINTELPRO. And I think as Shaka got into the research of the party, the Illinois chapter specifically, you know, the script grew, you know, like big. That's when it became almost, you know, I remember Shaka saying that to me, like, yo, somebody's gotta make a mini series about this. Because so much of it was so compelling, you know. But and it was, you know, the scripts were beautiful, you know, but thinking about what Shaka wanted to do in terms of making a film and knowing that it was going to be something that we were going to have to, you know, find a studio partner along with Macro to get behind and market, you know, and come up with a budget that was reasonable, you know what I mean? And in reading it and one that keep Shaka on that initial pitch that we thought was so unique, you know, it did make sense to focus it on that, you know, and I think we came out with a you know with a very competitive work of art. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something I think that'll stand the test of time, for sure. And you know, I think there's room for that project. You know, down the road. You know.
Yeah. Only thing I would add is just by the time Ryan and the proximity team approached Macro to partner with them, the basic framework of the kind of two-hander approach was already in place. But I would say that as we began to formulate the kind of creative and business plan in terms of the scope of it, many of our conversations, both through development as well as when we went to market, Battle of Algiers was definitely one of the comps that we use in terms of intensity and kind of the, you know, kind of aesthetic. And in addition to other movies like The Departed and Straight Outta Compton. So, you know, that was part of the kind of fabric in some of our discussions. But we'd already, Shaka and Will Burson had already had just a great framework of a script that, you know, that we read and fell in love with, and his Shaka's vision for how he was going to tell this story.
Do you think William O'Neill was a victim? I mean, the film humanizes him, I would say, but yeah, I think it still makes you angry on some level, what he did. But as I watched it, I wondered what I would do if I were in his situation. So first of all, let me just say that I don't think I would be in that situation, carrying out petty crimes to make money, which eventually led him to being caught and used as a tool against to get Hampton and the Black Panthers. But my guess is O'Neill probably thought he would never find himself in that situation either. So who knows? But as I sit here, I can confidently say that. At least I think I can confidently say that I would have taken the years in prison. I believe it was 6 years that Jesse Plemons' character Roy Mitchell offered him or said he would get, and I would have taken the years, and I would not have agreed to become an informant. At least that's what I think I would have done.
Right.
So first of all, well, I guess the question really was the original question was do you think O'Neill was a victim?
We debated this pretty heavily during a development process. I remember one of the meetings we had where I think we may have even talked about this for, I don't know, 4 hours of William O'Neill. Is he a sociopath? Is he a sociopath? And it was a whole conversation around it. And I think ultimately Shaka's view on this, and I tend to agree with where we ended up landing, that he was a capitalist, but and somewhat of an opportunist as well. And there are those of us, I think the three of us would probably have taken that 6-year sentence as opposed to selling our people out. But there are many people that would get put in those situations that get manipulated by the system. And in this case, William O'Neill, I think was even though he was a capitalist, he was weak, and he got and in this case, the system, he was seduced by it and it manipulated him, you know, in his sort of capitalistic, you know, opportunity that he saw when he was presented with that option. And so that's that. I think ultimately that's where we landed on it. That's where I landed on it. But I don't know, Ryan, what do you think, man?
I think that's an interesting word, like victim, because it's a load that's kind of like maybe oversimplifies the situation, and it's also a word that's loaded, and I think that it's clear that he was manipulated by the system, but he also did a fair share of manipulating himself, and to quote like our lead actor Lakeith Stanfield, he said in an interview a while back before the film was even done, it was a struggle for him to take this role, but one of the reasons that he did it was because there are more William O'Neills out in the world than there are Fred Hamptons,
Yep.
And the truth is, just knowing human beings, I've met more William O'Neills than I've never met anybody like Chairman Fred, when I hear stories from, not just the stories that are written about him or hearsay, but when I hear stories from the people that knew the guy, like people who stood next to him, had relationships with him, joined the party because of him, he seems like a very unique person. You know what I mean? William O'Neill does not feel that unique. You know what I mean? People rat and turn on people to get over on sentences and rob their family members. That shit happens every day. You know what I'm saying? Like people like Chairman Fred come along, once a generation if you're lucky, So I think what Shaka and Will did with the script so beautifully is they kind of compared and contrast, like, somebody who was like a one in a million kind of person versus somebody who you might run into, every once in a while, and showed how the government, manipulated one and ran out of ways to deal with the other and made the ultimate choice to assassinate him. So I try not to put myself in positions where you say, man, if it was this, I would have done that if I was that. All I know is my own, is my own situation. Like Chairman Fred Jr. often would talk about this and say, like, a lot of people say, yo, I never told the police nothing, but a lot of those same people have never been asked by the police anything either. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. And it's easy to say that to you in that situation. You know what I'm saying? Yep. I got my own principles. You know what I mean? I hope that everybody has principles that they can stand by, and you look back on what this guy did and the results of it, and it's heartbreaking. And I think that the character in the film exists as a powerful cautionary tale. For what could be at stake when you selling somebody out, when you selling yourself out, and for that, like, I'm happy to have been involved with it.
And also too, just to add, he was representative of, he is the Judas in this movie, but one of the things we all know that there were many other informants. And one of the things we learned was just how many other informants there were. That's one of the things we learned through the process of this movie, including in that particular chapter. And like you said, Ryan, that was, there are many other people that chose to go down that path, as opposed to the path of the more unique, leader like Chairman Fred.
Final question, I'll let you guys go. The whole VOD versus theatrical conversation. Obviously, we're in a pandemic now, and I'm sure you've probably been asked this question a million times, but I'm going to ask it anyway. It's coming out this Friday, and I guess it's going to be limited theatrical, and I think probably in the end, most people will see it at home on their television screens. I guess this is probably more for you, Charles.
Yeah, so it's we were one of the 17 films that Warner Brothers is going to release day and date, both theatrically and on HBO Max. I think in this case, I think only like 65% of the theaters are open, and at least domestically, and it's really challenging internationally right now. So they're open, but we know that most people are not going to be comfortable. But there are some markets that are more open than others. And so there's the option for those that are. Yes, this is going to be mainly seen on HBO Max. And we believe that the this story and the power of it, and this amazing movie that Shaka made, and this incredible cast, that it'll resonate with the people that are subscribers of HBO Max. But I think that there's going to be a lot of new subscribers, from this that want to see this film. But it's going to be great to see those that see it on the big screen as well. And it's just the reality of the time that we're in right now. If this film, was going to come out right now. I think in a pre-COVID world or in a post-COVID world, whatever that may look like when things have settled down or a little more back to normal, this absolutely would have been a movie that I believe would have done its astronomical numbers, both domestically and internationally. But we're looking at the reality of the moment of what we're in right now. But there are people that I know will be excited to see it in the comfort of their homes and the safety of their homes. And I think it's just as powerful in consuming it in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think more people probably would see it than would have in the theater. That's just my guess. I don't know. Since I think folks have become far more comfortable just watching things at home now. And this morning, Sundance 20, they released their audience figures for attendance, at least virtual attendance for 2021, and it was something like 3 times what the in-person attendance usually is. So yeah, I mean, people had access to the films, and so people tuned in, people bought tickets and they watched, which is great. Yeah. All right, I can't let you Ryan go without asking about Black Panther. Well, just squeezing one question in about Black Panther 2. I know you probably can't talk about it. I understand, that's cool, but I don't, I mean, I guess it's still on track for sometime in 2022. Are you guys going to shoot despite the pandemic? I mean, anything you can share about Black Panther 2?
Yeah, what I can share is, we excited to be able to get back into it. I'll be with heavy hearts. That our God won't be with us physically. You know what I'm saying? He'll be with us in spirit. Yeah, and we working. Like it'll come out in 2022. And that's all. That's all I got. But Tampa, it's good to see you, bro.
Okay, fellas. I appreciate the time. Thank you. This is the second time I've spoken to Ryan in the last couple of months. So I'm going to leave you alone until 2022 when Black Panther.
You good, bro? Any time, man. But we just excited to share this movie with everybody, man. And we love that you enjoyed it, bro. We do.